Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to talk about callbacks. Callbacks are an implementation of the delegates and they are useful when you want to get control back from a called functions, or they are useful when you want to do something sequentially. For example, when the game loads, there are so many different systems that you want to load subsequently. For example, the player spawns first, then the UI will be initiated, and the level will be loaded. So, any place in which a sequential action is required, or a situation in which you want to be notified of a function being completed, a task, or an execution which has happened. So to get that notification, we use callbacks. To better understand the concept behind callbacks, I will give you a very simple example. So imagine a situation in which you want to heat your pizza in a microwave oven and you want to eat it as soon as it is fully cooked. So the obvious method would be just to load the pizza in the oven and wait for the whole time till the pizza is fully cooked. In Unity, this would be similar to checking on that execution of the pizza cooking function on every update loop. So on every update loop, you will go on that pizza cooking script and check if the pizza is done, if the pizza is done. But this will cost you some amount of execution in every update loop, and it may also cause other executions to be stopped. So a better method would be, for in the case of this pizza and oven, is to give a pizza in the oven on a timer, and and then you can go on carry your normal task, and when the timer is finished, this oven will automatically notify you using that alarm. So in this method, your only job is to start the pizza cooking operation, or to call that cooking function, and then completely forget about that function. And when the cooking is over, when that function execution is complete, you will be notified back about the finished execution of that function. It is the responsibility of that function to notify you back, and this back notification is what is known as callback. To demonstrate how a callback function works, I have created a simple setup in which I have the previous player and I have a new game object and script called pigeon. And imagine a scenario in which the player has to pass a message to either a different player or to his home base, and he uses pigeon as a mean of communication. So he will give his message to the pigeon, and after a certain amount of time, which can be randomized, we will hear back that the message has been delivered by the pigeon. So we want to create a callback function in which when the message is delivered after a certain amount of time, the player is notified of that message being delivered. In the our pigeon class, let's create a simple function, public void deliver message. Now this deliver message, in order for it to notify the player, the in what we saw in the pizza and the oven example, the oven notifies you by using a sounding alarm, but you can't really use that alarm in coding scenario. So what you use as callback is a function. So to pass a reference of our function, we will use a delegate. And the type of delegate really depends upon the needs of a particular situation. So for example, your deliver message may need a function that has no argument. So you only want to be notified that the message was delivered. In some cases, you also want to get some extra information, like if you have delivered the message, you can get a return back message. In that case, your delegate function would be of will have a string argument or a string return type, etc. So for the simple case of just being notified of the deliver message task being over, we can create a delegate with return type void, and it also takes zero argument. So let's name it deliver message callback. and it takes no argument. We may also want to create a variable of this type where we will store the callback function. Now whenever this deliver message will be called, we also need a callback function. So the argument to the deliver message would be a, delegate of this type. So we'll create an argument of this type for the deliver message function. Right. Now whenever the player class will call the deliver message function, it will also provide us with a callback function that which we can use to notify the player back. And in this case, we can simulate the passage of time or the delay in message delivery by simply using an invoke function. So let's create another function which we will invoke after a certain period of time. This is deliver message delayed, and its job is to just be invoked after some time, and then this message will actually call the callback function. So we have received the callback function here, which we can simply assign it to our internal variable. This way our invoke function would call that callback, and we need a invoke call to this method. Invoke, and the time delay can, let's suppose it's 5 seconds. So now the player will call the deliver message function, provide it with uh, one of its functions which will be used as a callback function. Then we will store that function in our internal variable, and after a delay of 5 seconds we will call that function, and which will complete the loop, and the player will know that the message has been delivered, the task is complete. And in the player script we just need to get a reference to the pigeon class, and then we can directly call it in the start that. Oh, and we also need a function which will act as a our callback function, and just make sure that the signature of this function is same as the signature of the callback function, the delegate defined in the pigeon class, which we have seen is of the void return type and void arguments. So let's create a public void. This is message delivered successfully function. This is called when our message has been successfully delivered. And let's just add a simple debug to check if it works. And to hook this function as a callback function, we can go to the pigeon script and call the deliver message function, and it will take a function as an argument. We can also add a start task debug message here for more clarity. So this will show a debug message that the delivery of the message has started. And also let's remove the old calling of kill delegate functions so that we only see the debug message of our message delivery. Coming to the game here, when we hit the play button at the start, the player will start the delivery message to the pigeon, call the delivery message function on the pigeon, provide it with a callback function, and after 5 seconds when the pigeon has finally delivered the message, the player will get a notification back, the deliver message successfully function would be called, and we will know that the task has been completed. So at the start the task started, and finally after 5 seconds the player gets the message back, that is the success, he gets a callback function called back. So I showed you one of the uses of callback function, which is to get notified about tasks which take some time, and if your further execution depends upon the execution of a particular task, you can use callback functions to get that notification. There are also other uses of callback functions. Suppose if you are making a complex component based systems, and if there is a communication between these two components, then you can also use callback functions to pass message between two components. Or if there is a master component, it establishes communication between all the other components using a callback function. There are other uses too. For example, if you are using a procedural system and where everything has to happen in order, for example, if your terrain first the terrain mesh is created, then you go on to create a texture, then you go on to plant trees. So all these sequential steps, and where each step would take some amount of time which is not predetermined. So all your tasks are dependent upon the completion of their previous task. So in these cases, it is uh, advised to use a callback function to get the notification back and then continue on your execution.